Shalom Aleichem. We are learning the Sikha of Lecha Beis in Chelek Tezvav. Fascinating Sikha, quite deep. Talks about topics that are discussed elsewhere in Chassidus quite extensively. It's based on two Farbrengens. The main body of the Sikha is based on the Farbrengen of second day of Shavuos, Tafshin Lamed Hey, 1975. There's one element of the Farbrengen of the Sikha that's based on a Purim Sikha. It was a very geschmack Purim Farbrengen Tafshin Chavtes. And Ois Vav, part of Hey, Zion, they come from that Sikha, where the Rebbe talks about how can you teach a child about the hand of Hashem. So I want to first share some fascinating points of that Farbrengen, and then I want to focus on other elements of the second Farbrengen, the main Farbrengen of the Sikha. So here we go. Yeah, so it's the third in Taras Menachem, it's Ois Chavhei, etc. And Purim Tafshin Chavtes, and that was talking about Vayibim Achashverosh. How could you say that Achashverosh is referring to the Eibishter, Achris Veresh Shaloi, because ultimately everything's the Eibishter, etc. And then the Rebbe says this is also the beer to that it says in Torah, Yad Hashem, Einei Hashem. It's not understood. We have the obligation of Vishnantum Levanecha from a young child, and then you already teach him Psukim and Chumash, including the Psukim that say Etzba Lekimhi or Yada Chazaka. And he's a young child; he doesn't understand philosophy and Chassidus, Kabbalah, so you can't tell him about Sfidus. And it's not only because he's unable to understand; it's not a mania, a subjective thing, but rather Torah objectively says that limud hasoid comes after limud apshat, and mechamish lemikdas pshat, and ma'aseh shalom lemishnah's next level. Only Gemara, and the Gemara starts having seidas haTorah, but at 5 he doesn't, and he has no shaychus to it. And nevertheless, it's Torah Emes says that you should tell him etzba lekimi, yada chazaka. Still, while at the same time the kid thinks that yad is like his father's hand and his hand, and we say that Hashem's much stronger, so therefore he imagines his Hashem. My tati is the strongest, and Hashem's stronger than my tati. But still Gashmis. And that's against the fundamental of Emunah, Einei Guf, Einei Musa Guf, which is the way it's also sung in Yigdal. Al Pipi of Yigdal. Yeah, that in other K'taisim they say on Friday night, Shabbos morning. Now, the limud in the Yelad with the kid is not only a chana that one day he'll understand it al pisoid. It's not only a means to an end, but rather this is Torah Emes, not the levencha. So what is the hasbei that the Rebbe said in the Sikha? That when the child learns about Yada Chazaka, he knows that it's stronger than his father and his grandfather and all the strong people he saw. Well, but ultimately, he knows, interesting, I don't think this is the same Lashon that Rebbe uses in this Sikha. Rebbe says that the strength of the father is not just the bones and the meat, or because of the exercise his father is doing. The gvura of the gibor and the wealth of the ashir and the wisdom of the chacham are only because of the keros Hashem gave him. Tvar Hashem. The kid taka sees the meat, but he knows that meat by itself, and this is the point that definitely doesn't say in the Farbrengen. It says, what do you mean? There's meat on the table. There's steak that he's eating for lunch or for supper. He doesn't see any strength in the steak. He knows that what makes the father's flesh living. Basar chai. He doesn't know what life is, what gives life, and who gives life. But he knows that there's living flesh and there's a piece of schnitzel that he's eating. And it's that chayis that makes his father strong. So it comes out that we're taka learning with him the emes, but we can't learn it in detail. So we learn the general thing. We learn that his father's hand is strong because of the chayis the Eibishter gives it. And the Eibishter's hand has much more chayis shalei ba'erech, and therefore it's able to do nisim and other stuff. So that's the geschmacka part of the Sikha Purim Tafshin Chavtes. Then there is the Farbrengen of Shavuos Tafshin Lamed Hey. Very geschmack of Farbrengen, the second day of Shavuos, Tavshan Lamed Hey. And it's talking about Shavuos, the Teichen of the name, Chag HaShavuos, Matan Tereseinu, etc., etc. And in those days, in Sichas Kodesh, the Rebbe starts really the Sikha that we are learning. Give me a second. Yeah. That Matan Torah, what did it accomplish? That Avram only hit Shorish HaNivram B'Netzalim, and Matan Torah let you achieve much higher. What's the difference? That's a big Sikha of Farbrengen. And the big question of our Sikha. And the Rebbe goes very, very much in depth into the question. The Rebbe really explores the question fundamentally. What difference does it make? Why do I need to know this? Then the Rebbe says like this. The Rebbe says, based on the Pirush Mishnayos Rambam, that you should start Shaloi Lishma. Shaloi means Loi Lishma, Kam Lishma. Meaning that the Seder Avodah is that first you start with the wrong reasons or not the correct reasons. And the most edel of Shaloi Lishma is Leida Samais Asher Yasun. And then you climb higher. And the difference between Lishma and Shaloi Lishma is the general difference between Avram Avinu and Avodah after Matan Torah. Avram Avinu learned Torah the way Torah is connected to the world. At maximum to Shorish HaNetzalim. And that's Shaloi Lishma because it's still Metzius Ha'olam. Mashenken Matan Torah is the way it's Torah is L'mayla Hecha for Shorish HaNetzalim. And that is Torah Lishma. Now the Rebbe says like this. Before Matan Torah, the Avodah was only Shorish HaNivram, and like we know the Raya from the Mayon Ein Eitam. It was a Mayon in Yerushalayim. It can't go any higher than its source. In other words, it can only go as high as its flow. From deswegen is a verbunden mit Teva Olam. That's why the mikveh, the way the Beis Hamikdash was built, it had to be, the water wouldn't get pushed up, so it had to be at equal level to the way the flow was outside. So therefore you had to build the mikveh in a certain way. Because ultimately you need to have the Teicha Teva. And the famous story of the Alter Rebbe, they wanted to do Dafke Alpi Teva. And therefore, Mayanein Eitam given Hecher from Kaka Zarach of Gimel Amma, Bichdei also durchnehmen the Teva Olam. Had to permeate it, so therefore it had to be much, much higher, because it only went to the level where it was at. And that was all the firm Matan Torah. You could only get to your level, but then ultimately you could go even higher. And that is Shorish HaNetzalim. And Matan Torah gave that incredible accomplishment. So what's the Lecha? That first you have to do like Avram Avinu, and then you could go much higher. But that's what we have in the edited Sikha. Tineg Maskal Adaber, Malamde Torah, Tzivalanu Moshe, and then you start Oisius time, Pidish Hamilus, and then Chamish Hamik, etc. But then the Rebbe says there's another extreme. A Yid can think, why am I not receiving Razei Torah like it says in Pirkei Avos Perek Vav? Big revelations. And the answer is because there's multiple levels, and you're not holding by Torah Lishma. You're still on your Avodah. And over here, there's also that you have to learn Torah K'fi Shorish Nishmasa. There's a Lech in Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe writes in Nivus Talmud Torah, Amru Chachmei Emes. And the Rebbe says, as a footnote, as a side point, the Alter Rebbe in general doesn't write sources. And even where he writes a source, it's usually from Nigla. Over here he says, Amru Chachmei Emes. What is Amru Chachmei Emes? What did they say? That every soul needs to fix itself, its tikkun, by going in paradise based on what it could understand, until he could understand whatever his neshama is able to understand from Torah. Now, how are you supposed to know what your source of your neshama is, where you're supposed to focus? And the answer is Yagaita Matzasa. Darf nicht suchen und fragen. You don't have to ask where Shorish Nishmasa is. If you do Yagaita Matzasa, you'll find the things that are to Shorish Neshama. And that is all the way it's related to this world. However, you can go even higher. You could go to Lishma. Halech v'nasaya negba, you could go to the highest level. And yeah, as you can see, the Rebbe goes quite extensively into this. Then the Rebbe talks about in the Welt, not only in the individual. But yeah, this is very, very geschmack sicha, and ultimately we can see this materialize in our lives.